Hello, everybody. Matryoshka from DeSo here, and I have Lisa Marietta today with me. Lisa, thank you so very, very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. We're gonna have fun.
Thank you. And let me share a little bit about so that you will know who Lisa is before we will get into the interview. So this is Lisa's profile on BitCloud, and she has been here on 286 days already, which is absolutely crazy. And before we'll move on to the next exciting thing that, Lisa, please tell me about what have you published recently?
So I just published, I've been working on it for 2 months, and I just published a 19-page research paper about, I was looking at the kind of best practices of tech companies and the things that they do that are sort of like non-linear growth strategies. So the things that you might not always automatically think about, but the things that definitely help you position yourself for growth. So things like focusing on wellness, focusing on mental health awareness, things like meditation and mindfulness. Oh yeah, that's my website. Um, just the things like that, focusing on company culture that really create a positive environment that allows for innovation, that allows for productivity. I was just actually had a conversation with Taunaya earlier, and she was like, yeah, you are so much more motivated, you're so much more productive when you do feel supported as a person, as a human being, not just as a somebody who's meant to just do output. So that's what it talks about. And the things that Google does, the things that Netflix does, focusing on diversity and inclusion. Google does mindfulness-based emotional intelligence training, and they've done it for
What
15 years. So.
do you mind talking a little bit about this, about the mindfulness training that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so actually, so if you just Google it,
If you just Google,
just Google. But basically, yeah, there's an engineer. It actually was really fascinating doing the research for this report because I love researching and I love reading and I love learning new things. And there is an engineer who's been working. He's Google employee number 107, so he's been there for a while. And essentially, he also does mindfulness and meditation. And what he did was, so in Google, they have something called 20% time. So the engineers, or actually the employees, they're allowed to do whatever they want for 20% of their time. Gmail was invented during this time by one of the people who works there. A lot of their really popular products actually were on this like free time, do whatever you want, go be creative time, which is probably why Google is so innovative. But one of the engineers really got into mindfulness and meditation, and he's actually kind of like the happy person at Google. He welcomes everybody and it's like, hi, welcome to Google. And I just thought it was really interesting reading about this. But basically, during his 20% time, he created this emotional intelligence training that's based on mindfulness. So I talk a lot about mindfulness and meditation and yoga because I'm a spiritual teacher. And
which I probably should have mentioned, and being absolutely terrible host, I absolutely forgot to do. So thank you for reminding people about that.
You are perfect, exactly the way you are. Don't worry. Yeah, so just for anybody who's not super familiar with that world, meditation is turning inward, and mindfulness is sort of your inside world, and then mindfulness is your outside world. So how you interact with people, and that's where emotional intelligence comes into play. So that's self-awareness, empathy, being aware of what other people are going through, things like that. So anyway, so he developed this program. It was a beta program. They tested it in Google. I want to say they started in 2007, and it's grown so much, and it's been tested and proven in the Google workplace. So if you are a tech company, you should probably be doing this as well. If you want to be like Google. But yeah, so over the last 15 years, it's actually grown into, they call it the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. So it's a nonprofit educational organization. It's been spread to 50 countries. It's used by top companies, the UN. And I always say, like, if Google's doing it,
DeSo should be doing it too.
Right, yeah. Like, if good enough for Google, it's good enough for all of us. So Yeah, so that's just one of the things that I talk about in the report. So I talk about that. I talk about Dharmesh. He's always talking about culture and company culture and having cultures. Um, yeah, just and again, it's bringing that kind of like humanity back to business. We're not just these sort of robots who just work and produce and work, 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 work. It's no, we have lives, and it's that holistic point of view that takes the whole human being into account.
Yes, and with you mentioned Dharmesh, and I don't know if you've seen a thread that he and Nether has been exchanging comments about how the best developer practices, and one of the things that Dharmesh mentioned is the paying attention to the creators as well. Well, not in those words, I'm sorry. Dharmesh, I'm paraphrasing you. Please forgive me. I probably should go back and find the actual quote before doing that in the future. But yeah, and I actually even invited him to be on the show, but he politely declined. But he answered, which was nice, and it's amazing how much he does for everywhere, and for this platform specifically. So what do you talk about him?
So basically, so one of the things that Dharmesh is best known for, besides HubSpot, is the HubSpot culture code. And culture can be a lot of things. Culture is, it can be, a business can have a culture of wellness. It can have a culture of diversity and inclusion. It can have a toxic culture where people don't feel psychologically safe. So culture is just, yeah, it's how do you feel? Do you feel like you're welcome? Do you feel like your opinions are valued? And HubSpot is really, really, really well known for their culture code. It's actually an award-winning document. Dharmesh was kind of like the culture guy. Actually, it was him and I want to say his co-founder. But they were like, culture is where it's at. The perks of working here are the people that you get to work with and being happy when you're at work, which is huge. And I talk about this in the report, but it's, with the Great Resignation, people are this pandemic, people are like, okay, what is my life?
Yes, a lot of people are re-examining their lives, and yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
and it's funny because the saying is, oh, life is too short, and I'm like, actually, life is too long. Like, life is too long to work at a job you hate. Life is too long to be unhappy. Life is too long to spend a third of your day, more than half of your waking hours, because a third is sleeping, a third is waking, or sorry, a third is sleeping, a third is working, and then a third is miscellaneous. But it's important. It's important to have meaning. It's important to have purpose. And those are the things that drive us. And if you are in a group situation with a team, it's important to get along with your team, and it's important that everybody is respectful. It's important that everybody is kind. And I mentioned this in the report, but this isn't just me saying things to say like be nice to each other. These things are actually backed up by neuroscience,
Mhm.
um, because there's different parts of our brain and they react different ways to different things. So if we're in a meeting and you give an idea and I say, well, Matreshka, that's just stupid. You're right. Like, look at the face you just made, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to like hurt your feelings.
That's okay.
But the thing is, the part of your brain that is like the prefrontal cortex, the creative, like upper part that developed as we have developed as human beings, as we have evolved as human beings, that part shuts down
Mhm.
and you revert back to your reptile defense. I'm not safe. I need to defend myself brain. And you're not at your most creative, you're not at your most innovative, you're not at your best. So culture is about creating those safe spaces, creating those non-toxic workplaces. In the report, I think it said that 39% of tech workers, a toxic workplace was the reason that they wanted to leave.
So 39%, so almost 40% left because it was a toxic workplace in
Well,
the tech company.
it talks about I'm trying to remember. It's like 72% 2% of tech workers are thinking of leaving their jobs. 9 in 10 have, I don't remember. I'll read the report. You'll see it's in the report. It's 19 pages, but it's a quick read. But yeah, but and it was, if I remember correctly, 39%. That's almost 40%.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Amount. So
That's huge.
if you can take steps to make sure that your workplace is a positive environment, that people know how to practice nonviolent communication, that they have to do, and this is conscious leadership. This is recognizing and being mindful of how am I showing up in the world? How am I affecting other people with the words that I say and the actions that I take? And it all starts with ourselves. So it's first you kind of work on yourself, then you work on the culture, and then the company.
Yes, because you're usually spilling around yourself what you have inside, and whatever it is, it comes out in different ways. So my question is, on a scale from 0 to HubSpot, where is DeSo right now, culture-wise?
I think it depends on what you're talking about, because there are different aspects to it.
Sure. I guess there were instances that we heard, and specifically from women, that they felt that they have experienced something that made them feel that it was a toxic place. DeSo and the Discord and, some other places. So what can we as the community help to do to make it not a toxic place, but to make it a thriving, positive place where everybody's hopefully practicing the non-violent approach? Because one person told me that they saw somebody threaten to kill somebody. Of course, that's
Oh yeah.
Everybody would feel that it's not the safest environment when you walk into something like that. I totally understand that. So some of the other practices that you haven't mentioned yet, or that would help us to get to that sweet spot where we all respectfully love each other and support each other instead of tearing each other down, building together.
Well, here's the thing: is that even though DeSo it's not a company or an organization, I do think that it's beneficial to think of it that way. So if you were to show up at work, would you talk to the people at work and your coworkers? Because we are kind of coworkers, like we're building this thing together. So would you talk to the people at work the way that you talk to people on DeSo? Like, would you bully people? Would you fly off the handle and get really angry when you don't get your way and start cursing about everything? Would you just act in a way that is maybe not the best character? Because the thing is, we all have memories. And maybe that person that rug pulled 6 months ago, I remember that. I'll remember that a year from now. I'll remember that 3 years from now. And I'll remember, for me, this person is not trustworthy. So, but again, it's like, I'm not here to police anyone. I'm not here to say it needs to be this or it needs to be this. We all own it. And so we're all creating it together. And the beauty of DeSo is the diversity. The beauty of it is there's people who like this and there's people who like the polar opposite. The beauty of it is that there's people who think this and there's people who think the polar opposite. And that's great, because having those conversations in a calm and a respectful way is how we make it better. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I was going to say that I like your analogy to think about this as a workspace. But the only, I think, thing is that most of the people, the regular people, creators, who post, they, you mostly see it as a social media.
Yeah.
So I would personally like to, by our example, and hopefully others will follow, create a place where, it is a social media, but it is, and so far it has been mostly very positive experience for most of the people on there, but to create the culture, like you was talking about, the culture that would help us, understand that it's better and we work better when we are supporting each other instead of just saying something negative. Or if you are giving criticism, then proposing something else and not just constantly tearing things down that you don't like for some reason, for example.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. The issue is that, for example, if you're thinking of culture and of creating safe spaces for people, and there's people in DeSo who are like, safe spaces are stupid. I don't want to be politically correct, whatever. And that's fine. They're welcome to their opinion.
Yes.
But for those who do recognize that it's important for people not to feel attacked, uh, there's a way to be honest. Like, I'm a very honest person, but I'm always conscious of not doing it in a critical way, because I know that if I were to attack you and tell you that your ideas are stupid, that's just me criticizing you. That puts you on the defensive. Whereas if I sort of try to understand where you're coming from, if I'm practicing empathy, if I'm practicing emotional intelligence, and if I can give and honestly, like, I'm somebody who I generally try to not give unsolicited advice, first of all. So most of the time when I'm giving my opinion, it's because somebody has recognized, like, oh, Lisa has really good insights, I'm going to ask her for her opinion. And even then, I always try to phrase it in a not critical way, in a constructive way. And this is also just from like work experience, is that, okay, if you recognize a problem, don't just say there's a problem. You say, hey, I've noticed this thing. Here are 3 solutions. What do you think? And it's the beginning of a dialogue and a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Instead
So
of shutting other person down and feeling them like they want to now protect themselves or feel threatened by you.
Yeah, we used to be threatened by tigers, and now it's our sort of identities that get threatened. And especially now I'm very lucky in that I don't live in the United States. I'm American, but I live abroad, but I fully recognize that the climate, the political climate, has just become so supercharged there. Since September 11th, things have just changed so much. Like, I remember September 11th very well. I'm 42, and I was 22 when it happened. So like, I was a fully formed adult. So I've seen the progress that has happened. And it's a very different country now than it was back then. And people are just so divided. And so now, instead of our amygdala being activated when we're being chased by a tiger, now our amygdala gets, and we're not conscious of it, right? Now our amygdala gets activated when somebody says, well, I don't believe in vaccines, or I believe in vaccines.
Yeah.
And then there's that need to fight and sort of prove that I'm right. And it does not lead to dialogue. It does not lead to conversation. It does not lead to understanding. It does not lead to searching for a solution together. So that's the thing we always, and the work that I do is about shifting from that unconscious amygdala reptile brain to the conscious, more like higher brain.
I like that. I really, really like that shift. And I really hope that we will be able to arrive to the point where, we don't get so activated and so separated from each other by powers outside of our control, and that, I don't have to wake up and read about Russian troops at the Ukrainian border again and stuff like this, because it's just very unfortunate that all of this is happening. And yeah, I'm
The planet's melting. We've got bigger problems to deal with.
That is true, and that's why I'm hoping one day to go and live on Mars, that we will,
yeah?
actually have the technology and start a colony there. But I'm also realizing that at some point, when this colony grows large enough, probably the wars will start at some point, because not everybody is peace-loving as myself. But maybe with creating of DAOs and all of this, we will be able to actually create a community and create a society where people can rationally make decisions, and a lot of this other stuff. So
Incentivization.
yes, yeah. So Lisa, I wanted to actually ask you one other question that is funny. Who are you
Yeah.
terrified of on DeSo?
Matryoshka, you're like spilling all of my secrets.
I'm sorry. It's I think it's definitely blockchain worthy information, and I would like other people to know that. But if you don't feel comfortable, then we can end here. But it will be a little anticlimactic, but it's okay.
No, I was just before the interview, anybody watching, no, before the interview, she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna tag so and so and so and so," and I was like, "Oh my God, please don't do that. I'm terrified of them." And she was like, "Why are you terrified?" I just am, and I was telling her that like I have social anxiety, and so if I don't know people, I feel like I'm bothering them. Um, and then once I know people, like I know you, like we're friends, and I'm super comfortable with you. But if I don't know them, then I feel like I'm bothering them. So so I said, I don't want to say I'm terrified of. I don't want to say it.
All right. All right. We will leave that part out. But
But two very well-known creators on the platform.
one of them was already mentioned in this video. So you guys, it's coming down.
Who did we say?
Arts. You said that you were terrified of arts, and then asked why. And you mentioned about the Doodles Academy, how he came there and he was talking, and how he looks like very warm and welcome, which he absolutely is,
Yeah.
even better in real life. Um,
No,
but
he looks lovely. Like he's not terrifying, like because he's terrifying. He's terrifying because like I'm like a weird person.
that's
Oh yeah,
the I think this is the first time I heard of like being terrified out of respect, like to meet
yes.
actually somebody who is actually terrified in other people, and like you explained, you're not terrified as in you're like afraid of them or scared, but you're just like so like honoring them kind of when saying that, which I know
What it
sounds
is?
weird, but
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
yeah. Like the two people that I'm terrified of, it's because like I just think they're so smart, and I'm like, oh, like how do you exist? You know. I'll say the other one's Natter. Like I'm terrified of Natter. I didn't. I was like, do not tag him. I'm terrified of him. Even though like I've commented on his posts and he's like giving me diamonds and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, you know. But I'm terrified of him. I don't know why. He seems absolutely lovely. He seems like the nicest person, and I'm terrified of him. But it's because I don't know him.
Yes, and it actually made sense when you explained that. It's just I thought it's so funny because like Andy, he literally looks like like a big bear. So it's like, but like okay, that's a bad example because bears actually, I mean, they're not very like they can actually kill you. So that was a
Okay,
bad example.
you
I'm
should be
sorry,
terrified of bears.
but I meant that he looks like a very cuddly person. Like you wouldn't like I don't think would be scared of him, but also you'd never mess with him. So yeah, he
No, like he came and he spoke to Doodles Academy. He was so nice. Um, I've had like a few like DMs with him. When he writes me back, he's so nice. So it's not it has absolutely nothing to do with him or with reality. It's just that I'm terrified of him. Chamath, I'm terrified of Chamath. I'm like, and I feel also kind of like, and this is my theory about people that I don't know. I feel like Arts is good cop and Chamath is bad cop.
that's a very interesting analogy.
I don't know either of these people, but and like they have no idea that I exist. But this is my theory.
I can definitely agree with Arts being a good cop. I'm not sure I know
Yeah,
Chamath well enough to make such a determination.
but he's another one. I'm like, this is like one of the smartest people on the planet. I was like, oh, and I'm terrified of Balaji's as well. It's just these really smart people. I see these really intelligent people, and I'm just like, I'm terrified of you. You are so intelligent.
Yes, they are incredibly intelligent, and
But I
the
like that.
terrifying awe that they're causing is I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lisa. And thank you so much for being here and for sharing some of the best practices for growth in tech companies. I think that hopefully Nether will listen to them and he will read, or somebody on the team will read your report and, summarize to him the best practices so he can start just incorporating them. And
Right.
we will be building DeSo even better with more mindfulness and more all of the other awesome practices that we should start doing.
I mean, gotta have happy, healthy people, just in
Yeah,
general.
yeah, yeah. Usually happy people are very best workers.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody's
yeah,
in a good mood.
totally agree with that. So um, to everybody, I'm hoping that you will find your happiness there. Look under the description of the channel. You can see the link to Lisa's profile and my profile on DeSo to give us a follow. And we would love to meet you there and say hello. And to everybody else, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.